Okay, just going into it. There's a very, because I was looking up your background earlier today just to get some bits and pieces. First thing I noticed, you're actually D. Martin Bralsford. What does D stand for?
D stands for David. So it's a blessing of my parents who did it to both me and my brother. And it makes life very awkward because you would normally have to put your first name down at whatever is doctor's, dentist.
So
I don't answer the name. I was always called Martin, so
right. I
swore I'd never do it to anybody. And I have a daughter called Charlotte Louise Bralsford, who's really Louise. So.
And what's your brother's name?
John Michael.
Right. Okay. So, and what does he use? Michael or?
Yeah,
John?
Michael. He was always Michael. Yeah, they say it was, and I don't know. It was always. Well, the logic of Charlotte Louise was Charlotte Louise seemed easier to say than Louise Charlotte. But, so I don't know quite why David Martin, but it's a curse actually.
And you talk about siblings, and I'm just going to take you back. Where was Martin Bralsford? Let's start age 10.
Age 10, it was, it's one of the things as you get in advancing years, it's easy to remember the old stuff than the new stuff. I can't remember where I've left my car keys now. But
I know that one.
So yeah, 10 I was at what's called now primary school, thinking about in those days 11 plus. So and that was in Harrow.
In Harrow, so, yeah. And family, mother, father, brothers, sisters?
No, well, one brother, mother and father. We moved down from Sheffield, about 3 or 4 years before that. So.
And so what did Dad do?
Dad was in a company that made Union Carbide, as it became, but anyway, it was to do with making supply stuff for the steel industry, which was the Sheffield connection. So
yeah, I lived in Sheffield, amazing, wonderful city, it has to be said. So at 10 years old, you moved to Harrow. I take it you passed your 11 plus, did you?
Yep.
And went to.
I went to a grammar school there eventually. I went to Harrow.
You went to Harrow School?
And a long, complicated reason to my brother, but anyway, I finished up going to the same school as him.
Okay. So, relatively normal upbringing, sports, and what were you into? I mean, you're a big lad, so you must have been quite good at one or two things.
I did do a bit of rugby, but because I was.
When you say a bit of rugby, were you any good?
No.
At least you're honest about it. There's plenty of you will.
Sport is, I'm not very good. I played squash. Squash was probably the nearest I got to being competent.
And when you were young, what did you want to do when you grew up? As young lads, we always have,
I wasn't that keen on growing up actually, but some people say I've realised my achievement. But no, I think actually in the first job I really wanted to actually do was be a naval architect. Strangely enough, because there was no naval connection in the family, and you can't get much further away from the sea than Sheffield, really. So I don't know why it was, but I used to get this book out of the library called Jane's Book of Fighting Ships, and I was always copying that onto exercise books, any bits of paper. So I don't really know why that was. It must sort of go back somewhere in the genes.
And yet that maritime connection must be there somewhere, because I noticed your clubs are the Royal Channel Islands Yacht Club and the Barbados Yacht Club.
Yeah, Royal Channel Islands Yacht Club has got some car park space in Sentosa.
There looks like there's a few members in here nodding.
But yeah, no, I've done sailing in my time.
Yeah, so in your time, is that recent or is it
past? I still go sailing now, but I'm nothing like as active as I used to be. I sort of
proper sailing, not a gin palace, or have you got a gin palace?
Not a gym. No, proper sailing.
Your name's not Frank Walker, no.
No. No.
You like proper sailing?
I'm confused for it sometimes.
Okay, we're going to take something of a jump. So I assume you went through normal education, took your A-levels, and what did you do after that then?
Well, I went to London School of Economics.
Straight after school?
Yeah, and sort of did start doing anything there, and then a report came out. They were starting the first business schools were being created in London and Manchester in the UK after a thing called the Robbins Report. I don't know. I don't know if you remember, the Labour government came in, and there were the days of Wedgwood, Ben White hot technology, and we were all going to make Britain this sort of super efficient country. But to go to business school, you had to have had 2 years of business experience before you could go there. You couldn't go straight from it. So I left LSE and went and started doing my accountancy articles.
But you always evidently wanted to be a businessman at that age, did you?
No, that was the default. I mean, it was not that. It was I did that because that's what my brother and my father done. I ain't got any better ideas, and so. But I thought thought I was good. Couldn't think of anything else to do, so I went up that route. It wasn't much more than that really. And then I went to a business school. I really went there to try and get into marketing, trying to get a formal.
But you ended up as a chartered accountant shortly.
Well, I've done the chartered accountant before, yes. Right. I left. I have to say, I left chartered accountancy on the day that I finished my training contract.
Right. Yeah. So it wasn't an area that you were going to explore with any gusto.
No. But you never. It's one of those things you never leave. It's one of the things you never leave. Even now, you go into things and people you always introduce the chartered accountant. You sort of cringe ever so slightly.
So.
Sorry for those chartered accountants.
For those that are in here, yeah. So you come out of LSE and with what?
No, came out, did my accounting qualification, and then I had a 2 years business degree. That's when I went to Calagas in Slough, which in those days is as pretty as the name sounds.
Yes.
It's one of those names that you can go anywhere in the world and say that you worked in Slough.
And everybody sort of knows.
Oh, no. So I had 2 very good years there, and got lucky. I went to work first in Germany and then in Spain, in Barcelona, in the days of Franco.
Oh wow, that must have been really fascinating.
It was actually, yeah. It was the first time I lived in a police state, and before Jersey, that is.
And did it actually? Very good. Did it actually curtail anything you did? I mean, you must have been a young man, sort of tall, handsome, dare I say, or were you married or anything by this time?
You've got are these fake glasses?
Yeah. Can't see a thing. Yeah.
It was a. I mean, Spain was a very different country in those days from sort of the other Northern European ones. So I remember I met the first love of my life down there, and that was an Argentinian girl. But you had to go out with a chaperone. Literally had to go out with a chaperone. Yeah.
So I'm not going to ask any more.
It's the first time being out with 2 birds.
Did the relationship go anywhere, or is it?
No. It went somewhere. She went back to Argentina.
Yeah, you had a great effect on her then. Yeah.
I can always remember taking to home to meet Mum and Dad. We came up to the UK, and she was. So this would be in the early 1970s. So and she was going on and on and on about these things called the Malvinas. Yeah. Now, in those days, Malvinas didn't mean anything to anybody. We didn't know what they were. So out came the Atlas, and she's pointing these out, and she was really steamed up about this thing. We didn't know what she was on about and all that. And of course, it subsequently turned out to be the Falkland Islands. But when it happened, the Falkland Islands happened, or whatever it was, 12 years later, I got some insight just how worked up they were about.
That's interesting. That was interesting. Okay, so
say it like you mean it, Harry.
Yeah, vaguely. I've just got shot there. So you finished this relationship in Spain. Yeah, I'm getting.
Yeah, she went back to Argentina. I got these letters, and I could see they were increasingly cooling until she told me the last one was that she just got married. Yeah.
Oh, there you go.
One of my great investments. Actually, I should think about this. Was I still don't to this day don't know why it didn't work, but it didn't. I decided that I couldn't understand why people didn't have. Or the ice that they had in drinks was just tap water. And I've never understood why it is that people will buy very expensive gin and specify the gin, or whiskey, whatever it is, whatever the drink is, and then they're very picky about the tonic, and they'll chuck any old ice in it. And then it just melts and they drink it. So I wanted to create the branded ice cube.
Branded ice
Ice
cube.
cube. So I still think this is you can have this idea for free, but I'll tell you the end. I'll tell you the end. So we built this ice cube making place in southeast London, and the business was called Cool Cubes. And anyway, it went on for a bit. And I was out in Barbados, and I left some people creating the business. Anyway, finally, Cool Cubes, an ice company, went into liquidation.
Ah, very good. And genuinely, was it branded ice cubes? So
branded
people
ice cubes,
logos.
yeah.
And
we got all the things, the
ice
whole packet, expanded polystyrene. Oh, it was great. The difficulty was that to create a branded ice cube, you needed to be able to show that it was a different looking ice cube from any other ice cube, and therefore it needed to be absolutely clear. And so that people thought, yeah, that was clear, pure, rather than just the ordinary stuff. And it's very, very difficult, A, to make ice like that, and B, to keep it like that with the handling. So it was really not possible to deliver the product. And if you look on TV ads, by the way, this goes back to my rank days. If you see the gin and tonic, like you see a Gordon's gin, and you see the ice going in it, that's because it's a block of Perspex. It's not ice at all. So because it's very, very difficult to make ice cubes like that.
Okay, so that one didn't work. There must have been plenty who did. What was your best success before you got here?
Well, my memory's not that good. Well, probably Premier Brands, which was that was it from Cadbury Schweppes. So I was working at Cadbury, went there in 1983, and they were selling, which was a very poor performing business, which was their grocery products business. It was the only bit of Cadbury Schweppes that ever truly got merged. So this was from the Schweppes side. There was Kenco coffee and Chivers Hartley marmalades, jams, and there was all that fruit sort of handling business. And from the Cadbury side, it was Typhoon tea, Cadbury's cocoa, drinking chocolate, and chocolate biscuits and things like that. And so that was a business that a group of us bought, including somebody else who lives on the island now, Paul Sands, was involved in that. We were involved in that together, and so we bought that in 1986. And it really was a business that had a very disappointing performance. We actually so we bought it, and in fact the business went very well. I mean, the reason it went very well was because the prices of raw tea came down a lot, and suddenly this thing that wasn't making money started to make a lot of money. So the main difficulty was hiding from the big retailers just how much money we were making for a time. And one way that the way we were hiding it was buying other companies, which then added to our turnover, and then we could just actually make it look as though we were turning these other companies round. But in fact we were just actually letting it. And we got carried away with our own enthusiasm and carried on buying companies till we nearly bust the whole place. So we managed to get past the parcel very quickly in those heady days of the late 1980s.
So you must have been employing thousands and thousands of people.
Yeah, I think it was about 8,000 to 10,000. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That was an awful lot. And so you sold that then, did you?
We sold that to Hillsdown, and I carried on then for a couple of years with that in
Hillsdown before you came this way. So that
I was the bloke that was left behind to cover the tracks.
Yeah. Probably done that a few times in your career. So 92.
Old habits die hard.
Yeah, absolutely. So 92, you find a place in Jersey, or was that a little bit before that?
No, that was 92.
Yeah, and then of course you come here and immediately then take over pretty well as the chief executive.
Well, I mean that was again another fluke, and I think my career is full of just serendipity and things that just happen that way. But I'd had nothing to do in Barbados, and I was very bored and stuff, and so I thought I'd come back here and try and find something to do. And I responded to an ad in, what's going to be the JP?
Wow.
Well, there's our first connection.
The power of
they were
advertising.
looking for a finance director, so I thought, I don't know whether I could actually.
You are a chartered accountant. So
yeah, no, that's right. So I thought,
I
might as well. I hadn't done that stuff for years, and I thought, I'll try. So I went along, was interviewed for the job, and I thought that didn't go well. And the Coopers and Lybrand, as they were then called, were doing the interview. I thought that didn't go well at all, and so I didn't think anything much more was going to come of it. Then I got a call a few days later chap called Christopher Lloyd, who was chair at the time. I said, "Oh,
Chris,
I said, I thought, blimey, it didn't go well." And he said, when I went in to see him, we were surprised he didn't apply for the managing director's job. And I said, "I didn't know you were looking for one." And I started the next week.
Oh,
That's
wow.
absolutely true. And then I saw, because I got to see the files of Coopers and Lybrand, because the next job, the first thing was to recruit the finance director, and I wouldn't have got that job. I saw his notes from my interview. So I definitely wouldn't have got that.
You kicked out number 2, but got the number 1 job.
Which was a great break, it was terrific for me.
And having come from that sort of background into retail here, I mean, what did you see that you were able to turn around? Was Jersey in the dark ages? Because we're normally 15 years behind in certain areas.
It wasn't so much. I mean, Larish was in.
Yeah.
It had just been underinvested in, and but the people were fantastic. Great people who just not had. I mean, Kevin Keane was there, who was absolutely, in those days, it was quite clear, an absolute star. But he hadn't got a chartered accountant qualification.
At that stage,
at that point.
that's terrible.
And so that was it, and therefore, that was it. For some people, that was the, okay.
You couldn't possibly.
And
run
then
a
I could
business
see
on that basis.
other people here, Andy Cook, Steve Marie, I saw somewhere, and a number of other people joined in, and it was a terrific time. It was a great time, and a great business.
And evidently, it was a time of growth in Jersey for for everybody.
The island was going well, but it is always good to be able to get hold of a business that's actually been, is a bit on the floor, which is what it was. It had just bought the bakery, it had just bought Tektronix factory, so it had. I mean, this is why you've got to envy the bloke who's got hold of Tesco now, really, because I mean,
you couldn't do any worse.
And you just clear. So you clear everything out, and then you look a real hero after that for a bit. So and it was a bit like that. But the people there were fantastic, and we got into just doing very ordinary, basic, treating people well, better, training and stuff like that. And boom, it was like water in the desert. It was fantastic because it had got a great retail estate. It got a great consumer franchising name, and so yeah.
Was there any particular decisions you're proud of during that time that changed the business around?
I think, funnily enough, the most difficult thing to do I've found in business is to recruit at a senior level. I think is a bit of a lottery to do that, and probably there was a number of recruitments I made there into the senior exec team that turned out to be really good recruitments, and they've all gone on subsequent to that and done great things themselves. But so that, and you're given that people were saying it's going to be very difficult in the islands to find people to come and join you who've got commercial experience, potential, all that.
And all the rest
I
of
think
it,
that was probably the best thing. Now, whether that was judgment or whether it was just fluke, but who knows?
Can't always be fluke. We'll let you off that one. Just talking generally about business, can you give me 3 things that you would say to anyone who's running a business that they should absolutely concentrate on? What would Martin Bralsford say are the 3 top priorities?
Right. Well, the first thing about any business is it solving a problem? Is that identify the problem that your business is trying to solve? Because
so this is right at the outset.
Right at the outset.
Before you start anything.
With any business opportunity, what's the problem you're trying to solve? Because if you're not trying to solve somebody's problem, you've really got an uphill battle. Because people will, even if you present with us, sometimes you see it with cars these days. You've got technology in a car that's a solution to a problem you don't have.
Yeah.
I mean, my big question, if anyone's got a car, I always say, could you just change the clock by 1 hour? Which sometimes
no.
Can't do that. Whereas it used to be, you just get hold of the clock, the little thing on the clock, go like that. And so sometimes I think you see lots of places where that's the basic. What's the problem it's solving? I think that after that is then you come to people. You know, what people are likely to be able to help you solve that problem. And informing a team of people, apart from the individual skills, it's how are they going to actually mesh together, and are they going to work together? So, now, that doesn't mean it's got to be happy families, but it's do they buy into what you're trying to do? Ruthless indecision and compassionate. Ruthless indecision. Compassion.
Please tell me about.
Well, you've got to when you make decisions, don't confuse in making a decision the way that you are then are going to implement your decision. If you sort of think, well, this is going to be hard on somebody, or hard on some people, or hard, you don't avoid that decision because it's hard, and don't sort of think, well, I won't do that yet because that's going to be a difficult thing to do. So you have to be absolutely cold about making a decision, and if then it has negative implications, particularly for people, then the way that you actually reflect, if they've been loyal and all that sort of thing, you reflect that then in the terms that you actually implement that decision. But you don't conflate those two things. Don't let the compassion of dealing with the people that are going to be affected by it with the actual the decision you make. Because normally, you're if you're in an organisation, trying to focusing on the people that it's going to have bad consequences for. If you don't deal with that, it actually can spread and it affect everybody. So you have to be quite ruthless about in the decision taking.
Okay, because that's an absolutely critical element.
Yeah, I was going to say. I remember back at I've been told many a time I'm a cold fish. I don't think I am, because I think you have to make decisions. And the other thing is, here comes a fourth now.
Fourth, fifth, I don't care.
The other thing is be prepared to make decisions without perfect information.
Okay, that's interesting.
Because otherwise,
is that paralysis by analysis?
Yeah. And that's the real skill and that's using judgment. If you wait until you've got, maybe you're never going to get complete information anyway. But if you wait often enough, it's better to make a decision now based on, say, incomplete but incomplete information, but make it now, than wait until you've got complete information, and it might be too late for the decision anyway. So one of the things is that I've got enough now to be able to sort of say.
But you have to know you've got enough.
That's the judgment. That's the judgment.
That's judgment call. Yeah.
That's the judgment. But don't hang on to say.
Have you found yourself in boardrooms going, oh gosh, have we got enough information to make that call? On a number of occasions over the years, or is it? Have you been certain enough?
You wouldn't do it in a boardroom because the other thing, one thing is if you're in the boardroom, you've got to make everybody think that you absolutely know what you're doing.
So everybody thinks
you might go home that night and
think,
my God, but that's what management's about. Management is about not having everything perfectly cut and dried and clear, so it becomes self-evident what to do. Management is about, let's say, making a judgment based on the information you have to hand.
That's really interesting, that part. Right, I'm just going to move on apart to Jersey.
I mean, we can see that with our ministers today.
This is perfect lead into it to some extent.
I've just put a lob up for Harry.
Yeah.
Interesting is that, over the last 2 weeks I've been to the Women's Development Forum, and my business sponsors the Jersey Community Relations Trust Women in Leadership Forum, and that was an absolutely fantastic event on Tuesday night. I've never gone to something where there's been so many women in attendance and supporting women's groups. Jo Fairley was a speaker who owned Green and Black, set up Green and Black, and it was a $20 billion business now, and all sorts of things. And the panel there was Charlotte Blur, Christina Lefevre, Wendy Dorman, Jo Fairley, and it was just fantastic because I've had people coming that I've spoken to since that event that were really inspired by it, and I think that we're going to do a lot of work with Charlotte Blur on the board apprentice thing that she's setting up regarding diversity on boards, and we're going to start to ramp that up in Jersey. And I just would be really interested to get your real opinion on your view as a non-exec director in how you feel that women, in your opinion, have been treated on the board over the last few years, and how quotas are becoming such an issue in terms of legalisation regarding more representation of women on boards.
Good question. I had the benefit of having had a very strong-willed mother, very determined and very supportive. So I grew up in an environment where I was very used to seeing leadership. I don't say my dad was a weak man, but my mother was very strong. And in business, I mean, to roll right forward, the next, I've been saying this I think for about 10 or 12 years, the century we're in now is where women are going to take the commanding heights of running large organisations. And it's because the skills that women have, and where the skills where they're strongest, are going to be the dominant skills of largish organisations. I think over the next, well, for the foreseeable future. So I think it is. Should it have come your way earlier? Yes. Should it be coming your way more quickly? Yeah. Very definitely, but and I think the professions have actually led the way in this. The lawyers and the accountants have probably led the way, but we're seeing it more and more, and pretty good thing too. Now, I think one of the parts of your question was, by and large, the women I've worked with in business, I've enjoyed working with them, and have been remarkably effective. I mean, they spend a lot less time on politics positioning and loads of, just get on with the job and can multitask. So there's loads of, I could go on forever about that. But nevertheless, if I looking at the board level stuff, their presence has been conspicuous by its absence. And although I don't like compulsion coming into it, and I really don't like regulate. I mean, I'm somebody who just intuitively, and I don't want to offend anybody here, but I don't like the idea of, I've never smoked, but I don't like the idea of sort of a restaurant not being able to say you can smoke it. There's all, anyway, but we'll go to that also. So I'm not one for compelling people to do things, but I'm beginning to think that a bit more compulsion in getting women onto the boards is probably just to accelerate what's inevitable and move it on a bit quicker.